Japanese men over 70 maintain sexual function at 3 times the rate of American men in the same age group. Yet Viagra prescriptions in Japan are 87% lower. When I first saw these statistics, I assumed genetics. Different population, different baseline, different outcomes. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson. I've been a urologist specializing in men's health for 25 years. I've treated thousands of American men struggling with erectile dysfunction, written hundreds of prescriptions, recommended every intervention available in Western medicine. 6 months ago, I spent time researching aging male populations in Okinawa. I expected to find genetic advantages, dietary miracles, or exotic herbs unavailable in the West. What I found was a single nightly habit. Something so ordinary, so unremarkable to the men practicing it, that many of them laughed when I asked about it. They don't think of it as medicine. They think of it as maintenance, like brushing their teeth or washing their face. But the biological effect is undeniable. Picture the American bedroom. Pill bottles on the nightstand. Anxiety about whether tonight will work. Checking the clock because you have a 30-minute window. Planning intimacy around pharmaceutical timing. Now picture the Japanese approach. No pills or anxiety. Natural function maintained into the 8th decade of life. The difference isn't genetic luck. It's information you were never given. The men I spoke with in Okinawa couldn't understand why this would be considered remarkable. Of course we do this, one 76-year-old man told me. Why would we let our circulation fail when we can maintain it? That conversation shifted everything I thought I knew about managing age-related erectile decline. This isn't about adopting Japanese culture, or eating unfamiliar foods or moving to Okinawa. This is about understanding what happens in the body when a specific nightly practice is followed consistently. Once you see the biology, the results make perfect sense. If you've been told erectile decline is inevitable with age, leave a comment with the number 1. I need to know how many men have been misled about this. The question isn't whether this works. The data from multiple populations proves it does. The question is why the Western medical approach has ignored a practice this effective. To understand that, you first need to see why the pill approach traps you in a cycle most men don't recognize until they're years deep into it. Maybe you've tried the pills. The first time brought relief. Finally, a solution. The second time came with more anxiety. Will it work again? Did I take it at the right time? The third time, you're planning your entire evening around a 30-minute window. Spontaneity is gone. Romance is replaced by pharmaceutical logistics. Pills don't restore function. They force a response. There's a critical difference. When you take a PDE5 inhibitor like Viagra or Cialis, you're temporarily overriding your body's natural signaling. The drug blocks an enzyme, which allows blood vessels to dilate artificially. For 4 to 6 hours, your body behaves differently than it normally would. Then the drug clears your system, and you're back where you started. The men in my practice describe a specific pattern. Initial gratitude that something works. Then gradual dependence. Not just physical, though tolerance does build over time. The psychological dependence is more insidious. You start to believe you can't function without the pill. You avoid intimacy unless you've taken it. You feel like your body has permanently failed, and only pharmaceutical intervention keeps you capable. One patient told me he hadn't attempted morning intimacy in 3 years because he couldn't plan for it. Another said he declined a spontaneous moment with his wife because he wasn't prepared. The pill that was supposed to restore confidence had quietly stolen it instead. A third man admitted he kept pills in his car, his office, his gym bag, because the fear of being caught without them was overwhelming. He described feeling like a diabetic managing insulin, except the condition he was managing was supposed to be about pleasure and connection. There's something else most men don't know. These medications work by dilating blood vessels throughout your body, not just in your penis. That's why they affect blood pressure. That's why men with certain heart conditions can't take them. You're triggering a systemic vascular response to achieve a localized effect. And critically, you're doing nothing to address why those blood vessels became restricted in the first place. Think about what that means. Every time you take the pill, you're compensating for a problem rather than solving it. the underlying vascular restriction remains. The inflammation that's stiffening your arteries continues. The decline in nitric oxide production isn't reversed. You're just temporarily forcing your body to respond despite all of that. Over time, doses increase. Side effects accumulate. Headaches, flushed skin, nasal congestion, vision changes. You accept these as the cost of function. But there's a deeper cost. You've medicalized one of the most natural, spontaneous aspects of human connection. Every intimate moment now requires pharmaceutical planning. The calendar becomes part of your sex life. The clock becomes part of foreplay. Japanese men aren't avoiding this trap through superior willpower or favorable genetics. They're addressing the root vascular problem through something they do every single night before sleep. It has nothing to do with medication. It has everything to do with understanding what the body actually needs to maintain natural function. Erections aren't lost because of age. They're lost because of arterial memory. This concept isn't taught in medical school, but it explains why two 70-year-old men can have completely different sexual function despite similar overall health. Blood vessels exposed to chronic inflammation, poor circulation, and oxidative stress develop what I call stiffness memory. The smooth muscle cells in the arterial walls begin to favor contraction over relaxation. Over years, they forget how to dilate fully. This isn't permanent damage in most cases. It's adaptive behavior. Your arteries are responding to the signals they receive most often. By age 60, most American men produce 50% less nitric oxide than they did at 30. Nitric oxide is the master signaling molecule for vascular relaxation. When a nerve signal tells your penis to become erect, that signal triggers nitric oxide release. The nitric oxide tells the smooth muscle in the arterial walls to relax. When those muscles relax, the arteries dilate. When the arteries dilate, blood rushes in under pressure. That pressure is what creates firmness. Without adequate nitric oxide, the signal never completes. The muscles don't relax fully. The arteries don't dilate sufficiently. Blood flow remains restricted. You experience partial erections, or no erection at all, even though desire is present and nerve signaling is intact. The problem isn't in your brain or your nerves. It's in the vascular response. There's another piece most men don't connect. Cold hands and feet. Poor sleep quality. Erectile decline. These are all manifestations of the same underlying problem: chronic vascular constriction. Your body is stuck in a state where blood vessels throughout your system aren't relaxing as they should. This affects circulation to your extremities, to your brain during sleep, and to your penis during arousal. The man who complains about cold feet in bed and declining sexual function is describing the same biological problem from two different angles. The hours before sleep are the most powerful window for reprogramming this vascular response. During sleep, your body undergoes multiple cycles of autonomic nervous system shifts. If you go to sleep with your vascular system in a relaxed state, those cycles reinforce relaxation. If you go to sleep with chronic tension in your blood vessels, the cycles reinforce tension. Night after night, you're training your arteries how to behave. Japanese men figured this out through cultural practice long before the biology was understood. The nightly ritual they follow targets three things simultaneously. First, it triggers immediate systemic vasodilation. Second, it boosts nitric oxide production for several hours. Third, and most importantly, it resets the arterial memory by consistently signaling relaxation before the critical sleep window. When you understand that your arteries need a nightly reset signal, the Japanese practice makes perfect biological sense. It also explains why men who adopt it feel results within days, not weeks. They're not repairing years of damage overnight. They're simply giving their vascular system a consistent signal it's been starving for. Once you understand what the body needs, the practice itself is remarkably simple. The practice is a hot bath followed by fermented soy, taken 90 minutes before sleep. That's it. No complicated protocols or exotic ingredients. Just heat, fermentation, and timing. Let me break down why each element matters. A 15 to 20 minute hot bath at 104 to 108 degrees Fahrenheit triggers systemic vasodilation. Your core body temperature rises. Blood vessels throughout your entire body dilate to release heat. This isn't mild dilation. Studies show nitric oxide production increases by 300% in the 2 to 3 hours following a hot bath. Your arteries get flooded with the exact signaling molecule they need to remember how to relax. The heat also reduces arterial tension immediately. Men who step out of a properly heated bath report feeling warmth in their hands and feet, areas that have been chronically cold for years. That's not placebo. That's real circulation improvement happening in real time. The sensation of warmth spreading to your extremities is nitric oxide opening peripheral blood vessels that have been constricted for months or years. Immediately after the bath, while your vessels are still dilated and nitric oxide production is elevated, you consume a small serving of natto. Natto is fermented soybeans, common in Japanese breakfast, but available in many Asian grocery stores in the West. The serving size is small, typically about 2 tablespoons. The fermentation produces an enzyme called nattokinase. This enzyme dissolves microclots, the tiny accumulations of fibrin that restrict blood flow in small vessels. It also extends the availability of nitric oxide, keeping your vascular system in a relaxed state for hours. The combination is synergistic. The bath opens your arteries. The nattokinase keeps them open and clears microscopic obstructions. Both effects extend deep into the night. But timing is everything. You don't do this and then immediately go to bed. You maintain a 90-minute gap. During those 90 minutes, your core body temperature begins to drop. This temperature drop is one of the body's primary sleep signals. When your core temperature falls naturally after being elevated, you enter deeper sleep stages more easily. Deep sleep is when growth hormone is released, when tissue repair happens, when your vascular system undergoes maintenance. So you're stacking 3 biological processes. Enhanced nitric oxide production from the heat, microclot dissolution from the nattokinase, and improved deep sleep from the controlled temperature drop. All 3 support sustained overnight circulation. While you're sleeping, blood flow to your penis cycles through multiple erections. This is normal physiology. But when vascular function is impaired, these nocturnal erections become weak or absent. When you restore proper overnight circulation, they return. This is why pills give you a 4-hour window, but this practice gives you 8 hours of vascular restoration. Pills force a temporary response. This protocol supports the natural recovery process your body was designed to undergo every night. In Okinawa, men do this as mundane routine. They don't think of it as sexual health intervention. They think of it as basic maintenance. The same way you wouldn't skip brushing your teeth, they wouldn't skip the nightly bath and fermented soy. The consistency is what retrains the arterial memory. 1 night provides acute benefit. 30 nights provides cumulative reprogramming. You now know what they do and why it works biologically. Most Western men who try this make 3 critical mistakes that kill results. Mistake number 3 is the one that keeps them stuck despite perfect execution of steps 1 and 2. Mistake number 1 is bath temperature too hot or too long. More heat seems like it would mean more benefit, but that's not how vascular physiology works. Above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or longer than 30 minutes, you trigger a stress response. Cortisol spikes. Cortisol constricts blood vessels. You get the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. I've treated men who sat in 115-degree water for 45 minutes, convinced they were maximizing the effect. They reported feeling worse. Anxiety increased. Sleep quality declined. Morning function disappeared. They concluded the protocol didn't work. The protocol was fine. The execution was wrong. The Goldilocks zone is 104 to 108 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. Use a thermometer. Don't guess. This produces sufficient core temperature elevation to trigger vasodilation without crossing into stress territory. You should feel relaxed when you step out, not exhausted. Mistake number 2 is wrong fermented food substitution. Miso paste doesn't contain nattokinase. Regular tofu isn't fermented. Tempeh is fermented but produces different enzymes. Kimchi has cardiovascular benefits but works through a different mechanism. Natto is specific because the Bacillus subtilis bacteria used in its fermentation produces nattokinase. No other common fermented food does this reliably. If you can't access natto, and many Western men can't, nattokinase is available as a supplement. The effective dose is 2,000 fibrinolytic units, taken with a small amount of healthy fat to improve absorption. Take it right after the bath, same timing as you would with natto. Olive oil, avocado, or a handful of nuts provides sufficient fat. Understanding the mechanism matters here. You're not just eating fermented food for gut health. You're consuming a specific enzyme that dissolves fibrin clots and extends nitric oxide availability. If the fermented food doesn't contain that enzyme, it won't produce the same vascular effect. Men often choose the most convenient or familiar option without understanding what actually matters. When they see limited results, they abandon the approach entirely rather than adjusting the execution. The underlying method works. It's supported by decades of population data, but only when each element actually targets the biological mechanism it's meant to address. If knowing why something works is different from knowing how to sequence it correctly, that distinction becomes critical when troubleshooting your own results. The complete sexual health blueprint for men over 50 walks through these execution details in proper order so men don't spend weeks testing variations that were never going to work. Mistake number 3 is timing collapse. Doing this right before bed short-circuits the cooling phase. Your core temperature stays elevated. You lie awake feeling hot. Sleep quality suffers. When sleep quality suffers, nocturnal erections don't occur properly. You've eliminated one of the primary benefits. Doing it too early, say 3 or 4 hours before bed, loses the overnight vascular effect. Nitric oxide elevation peaks in the first 2 to 3 hours after the bath. If you go to bed 5 hours later, you've missed the window where enhanced circulation would be supporting your natural nocturnal erection cycles. The 90-minute gap is non-negotiable. It's the point where core temperature has dropped enough to trigger deep sleep, but nitric oxide production is still significantly elevated. Men who compress this to 30 minutes or extend it to 3 hours both report diminished results. I've seen this pattern enough times to know it's not individual variation. It's biology. The temperature curve and the nitric oxide curve intersect optimally at 90 minutes. One more thing men get wrong. Expecting an immediate erection that night. This protocol is vascular restoration, not acute pharmaceutical intervention. The first signs are better sleep quality. You wake up feeling more rested. Your hands and feet feel warmer. Energy is more stable throughout the day. Morning wood returns next, sometimes within 72 hours. Sometimes taking 2 weeks. Erectile response during intimacy is the last thing to fully restore because it requires the most confidence. When you avoid these 3 mistakes, most men report the first changes within 72 hours. There's a specific sequence those changes follow, and knowing what to expect determines whether you'll stick with it through the adaptation phase. Days 1 through 3, deep sleep returns. Men report waking up feeling actually rested, not just having been unconscious for 7 hours. There's a noticeable difference. You're cycling through proper sleep stages. Bathroom trips at night decrease. Better circulation means better bladder control. Your hands and feet are warmer when you wake up. These changes seem minor, but they're the foundation. They tell you the vascular system is responding. You're not waiting weeks to see if something is working. You're seeing immediate feedback that circulation is improving. Days 4 through 7, morning wood reappears. For men who haven't experienced this in months or years, it's startling. The firmness might not be complete yet. It might be brief, but it's a signal your body is reactivating natural function. Around day 5 or 6, many men also notice an energy shift in the afternoon. The 3 p.m. crash that used to hit every day softens or disappears. Again, this is circulation. Better oxygen delivery to your brain means sustained energy. Days 8 through 14, morning wood becomes consistent. Firmness improves. Spontaneous thoughts about intimacy return. This is important. Libido isn't just hormonal. When your body stops responding physically, your brain stops initiating desire. It's protective. Why generate arousal when the physical capacity isn't there? When physical capacity returns, the mental connection rebuilds. You start wanting intimacy again because your body is signaling that it can respond. Days 15 through 30, full restoration for most men. Natural erections during sleep are strong. Erectile response during arousal is reliable. Performance anxiety decreases because you're no longer guessing whether your body will cooperate. Confidence returns. Men describe feeling like themselves again, not a diminished version they've been tolerating. The adaptation curve varies. Some men see morning wood on day 3. Others take 21 days. This depends on baseline vascular health. If you have significant arterial stiffness from years of poor circulation, the retraining takes longer. If you're on blood pressure medication, that affects vascular tone and can slow initial response. If you have chronic inflammation from diet or stress, that interferes with nitric oxide signaling. Michael, 68 years old, reported morning wood on day 5 after 18 months without it. He maintained the protocol consistently. By week 4, he described his erectile function as better than it had been in his early 60s. John, 73, took 19 days to see the first changes. He almost quit on day 15, convinced it wasn't working. Day 19, morning wood returned. By day 30, he was achieving consistent natural function without pills for the first time in 4 years. The reason this works long-term, unlike pills, is that you're retraining the vascular system. You're not forcing temporary responses. You're teaching your arteries to remember their natural relaxation state. After 90 days of consistent practice, many men find they can reduce frequency to every other night and maintain results. The arterial memory has reset. The system is self-sustaining again. If you're wondering whether this applies to your specific situation, whether you have diabetes, take blood pressure medication, or haven't had natural function in years, the next section addresses exactly that. For men with high blood pressure or on blood pressure medication, the protocol works but requires adjustment. Your medication is already affecting vascular tone. Adding hot bath therapy means you need to monitor more carefully. Start with water temperature at 102 degrees instead of 104. Stay in for 12 minutes instead of 20. This produces sufficient vasodilation without dropping blood pressure too aggressively. After the first week, if you feel stable, you can gradually increase temperature and duration toward the standard range. If you have diabetes, this protocol is particularly valuable. Diabetes damages the endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels, which is where nitric oxide is produced. The hot bath stimulates endothelial repair. The nattokinase helps clear the microclots that diabetic men develop more readily. However, diabetics need to monitor blood sugar closely. Hot baths can lower blood sugar. Check your levels before and after, especially in the first week, so you can adjust insulin or medication timing if needed. Men with heart conditions should get clearance from their doctor before starting. The protocol is generally safe. Heat therapy has been used in cardiac rehabilitation for decades. But individual circumstances vary. If you have unstable angina, recent heart attack, or severe heart failure, medical supervision is necessary. Drug interactions matter. This can be combined with low-dose PDE5 inhibitors initially. Many men use the protocol to wean off pills over several months. The nattokinase enzyme is a mild blood thinner. If you're taking warfarin, Plavix, or other anticoagulants, you need medical supervision. The combination can increase bleeding risk. If you can't do hot baths due to mobility issues, skin conditions, or lack of bathtub access, there's a modification. A warm foot bath for 20 minutes provides 60 to 70% of the vascular benefit. Fill a large basin with water at 108 degrees. Submerge both feet up to mid-calf. Elevate your legs slightly. This triggers significant lower body vasodilation, which improves circulation to the pelvic region. It's not as comprehensive as full-body immersion, but it produces measurable results. If you can't access natto and need to use supplements, take nattokinase at 2,000 fibrinolytic units. Consume it with a fat source, olive oil, a quarter of an avocado, or a small handful of almonds. Fat improves enzyme absorption. Without it, much of the nattokinase passes through without being utilized. Some men substitute other fermented foods. The hierarchy is tempeh, then miso, then kimchi, in descending order of effectiveness. None match natto's nattokinase content, but they provide partial benefit. Optimization variables that enhance results. Add magnesium citrate before bed. 300 to 400 milligrams. Magnesium is a cofactor in nitric oxide production. Most men over 60 are deficient. Reduce alcohol within 4 hours of the protocol. Alcohol competes for the same vascular effects you're trying to achieve. It dilates vessels initially, then causes rebound constriction. This interferes with the overnight restoration you're targeting. Get morning sunlight exposure within 30 minutes of waking. This reinforces circadian rhythm, which improves sleep architecture, which enhances the nocturnal vascular maintenance your body performs naturally. Consider tracking your resting heart rate each morning. As vascular function improves, resting heart rate typically drops by 3 to 5 beats per minute. This is objective data that circulation is strengthening. Some men also track nocturnal bathroom trips. Fewer trips correlates with better overnight circulation and deeper sleep. These variables alone can shift someone from modest results to dramatic results without changing the core protocol. For men working through different health conditions, medication interactions, or just wanting to understand how each element compounds with the others, having step-by-step guidance organized by situation removes the trial and error phase entirely. The link in the description has that structure for anyone who wants continued clarity at their own pace. When to seek medical help. If you follow this correctly for 30 days and see zero improvement, get a vascular health screening. This could indicate advanced arterial disease that requires medical intervention beyond lifestyle approaches. Ultrasound can measure blood flow to the penis directly. It's non-invasive and gives you concrete data about whether there's structural blockage versus functional constriction. Most men see results well before 30 days. If you're the exception, that's important information. You now have everything you need to begin tonight. Whether this transforms your life or becomes another thing you meant to try depends on one decision. Japanese men don't think of this as medicine. They think of it as maintenance. The same way you maintain your car, your home, your teeth. Your vascular system needs nightly maintenance. Without it, function declines. With it, function persists decades longer than men who ignore it. This isn't about performance. It's about feeling like yourself again. Waking up and recognizing the man in the mirror. Reaching for your partner without fear. Knowing your body responds when your mind says yes. That confidence, that self-recognition, that connection between intention and physical capacity, that's what gets stolen by gradual vascular decline. And that's what gets restored when you give your body the nightly reset signal it's been asking for. The cost of waiting is cumulative. Every night you delay is another night of diminished circulation. Another night your arteries stay locked in tension. Another night the gap between who you are and who you feel grows wider. Some men wait years. They try pills, supplements, every quick fix available, everything except the one practice that addresses the underlying biology. Start tonight. Fill the bath. Set the timer for 15 minutes. Get the water to 105 degrees. While you're in the bath, order nattokinase online if you need to. It arrives in 2 days. But start with the bath tonight. The heat therapy alone produces measurable benefit. Adding the nattokinase a few days later is fine. The 90-minute gap before sleep is the variable you can control immediately. Japanese men over 70 maintain sexual function at 3 times the rate of American men. Not because of genetics. Not because of luck. Because of this practice. Because they never stopped maintaining what matters. They understood something Western medicine ignored. The body doesn't need to be forced into temporary responses. It needs consistent signals that support its natural function. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson. After 25 years as a urologist helping men reclaim their vitality, I can tell you this with absolute certainty. It's never too late. Your body remembers how to work. You just have to remind it. If this shifted how you think about aging and sexual health, let me know in the comments. And subscribe to Vital Health Seniors so we can keep walking this path together. Your best chapter might still be waiting to be written. The pen is in your hands right now.